This is Chris, and this is going to be my Game of Thrones Season 6, Episode 1 breakdown. Yes, Game of Thrones Season 6 is already here. Already one episode in the books, only 9 more to go. Obviously, there will be spoilers, so if you hadn't seen Episode 1, click away, come back and watch after you've seen it. So let's jump right in and break down the Red Woman. Although, if that refers to Melisandre, I really wouldn't call her a Red Woman. Let's just say she got her AARP and her Medicare card a long time ago. Hell, she might have trained yoga. Alright, let's jump right in. We start off in our first scene, and that's the ominous shot of the wall as we zoom in on Jon's body. Interestingly enough, here we hear a bunch of wolves howling in the background. And then we see Ghost trying to get out of his kennel. Now, is that Ghost? Still? Anyway, Davos seems to hear these wolves howling, comes out of his room and finds Jon's body, and then some Night's Watch members that are on Team Jon come out. They basically say, alright, let's get him inside. And Davos kind of stares down at the ground here after they picked him up to take him inside, and he's kind of looking down at where he was laying like, what the hell is going on here? You know, I was trying to look and see if there was some kind of pattern or something like that they hid in there, but it looks like to me he was just looking down going, damn, that's a lot of blood. So we immediately go inside where they lay him out on the table, and we see Ed again finally, and he is pissed off, and he wants to go kill all the mutineers, and mainly Alliser Thorne. And they're really dumbfounded as to what to do here. They know they're going to have to fight the rest of these guys, but they know they're outnumbered severely. So Ed's like, fuck it, we're going to die tonight. And Davos, being the thinker in the room, says, you know what, we need to fight, but there's no need to die. There are a lot more people out there that owe their life to Jon Snow. And that suggests the wildlings, obviously. So Ed left the room, says, bar the door, let nobody in, I'll be back. So he's going to get 1-1 in the gang. Sir Alliser Thorne may get the treatment that Sir Patrick did in the books with 1-1 beating his ass against the walls. But before he leaves, we have Melisandre knocking on the door, and they draw their swords thinking, oh shit, we're about to fight right now. She comes in, and she's really depressed. She comes in like, you know what, I saw him in the flames. I saw him fighting in the battle in the north at Winterfell. So that right there gives you a little bit of insight into his role in the future. So yes, he will be back. And then we have the rest of the Night's Watch, and they're in the main hall there, and they're actually discussing Jon's death. Alliser Thorne tries to justify his actions and give this bullshit speech about loyalty when you just got finished murdering the person you're supposed to be loyal to as your Lord Commander. Hypocrite much? And basically they kind of say, hey, we had a choice to make. He was going to destroy us by letting the wildlings through, although he never disobeyed a command. And the Night's Watch end up like, well, okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense, and they don't do shit about it. And then we go back to the room Jon's in, and we have a little shot here of Ghost kind of moving Jon's hand, which is kind of interesting they threw that in there. And then we go to Winterfell, and we see Ramsay Bolton supposedly like mourning the loss of Miranda. He acted like for a second that he had a heart, but then you realize he's full of shit. I met her when she was 11, and she stunk, but she wasn't afraid of me, and I really liked her. She was really cool. And the Maester goes, would you like me to dig a grave for her, or would you like me to have the men build a funeral pyre? And Ramsay was like, no, that's okay. She's still good meat. Feed her to the hounds. And then we have a very interesting scene with Roose and Ramsay. Roose is like congratulating Ramsay on the victory against Stannis. And then they get into the conversation about Sansa going missing and how they need her to rally the entire North behind them to fight the Lannisters because he did go against the crown when he arranged that marriage. Roose basically rubs it in Ramsay's face. You know what? You better hope you find her because Fat Walda is carrying probably a boy. Let's hope the Maester's right because you can't produce an heir now. And if you can't produce an heir, I'm going to have another son anyway. And that really puts the damn worried look on Ramsay's face. But I also think that planted the seed in Ramsay's head there to perhaps take matters into his own hands and let's just say get rid of the potential heir. And then we have Sansa and Theon running away. They go through a cold river to throw off the hounds. The Bolton hunting parties end up catching up to her anyway with the hounds. Theon actually tries to sacrifice himself by saying, you keep going straight north. Jon Snow is the Lord Commander at the Wall. He will help you. I'll throw him off track. And they actually catch them and they're about to basically haul them back to Winterfell when here comes Brienne to save the day and also Podrick. They end up killing all the guys and Theon actually saves Pod. Pod had got knocked down during a fight. He was about to get stabbed and Theon picks up somebody's sword and stabs him through the back. And that's the first time Theon has killed somebody with a sword in a long time. So to me, this is kind of finishing up his redemption arc. As I said last year, he went from Theon to Reek, kind of back to Theon again. Then Brienne pledges herself to Sansa again, but this time she actually accepts like she should have in the first place. And what's interesting about this shot is that it had Sansa looking really ladylike. It was almost a duplicate scene of when Brienne pledged herself to Catelyn before she died, and it tells me she's going to take the revenge arc that her mother would have. So this was kind of cool to see Sansa take Brienne's pledge and use her as her Queen's Guard, so to speak, but I think this will cause a conflict down the road, more than likely in the River Run situation when Jaime Lannister arrives. And then we go over to King's Landing and Cersei, and she finds out about Myrcella. She sees the ship coming in, and then she sees Jaime coming in from the harbor, as we saw in the trailers, and he's on a boat with Myrcella's body, and she starts to lose it. She goes from happy and elated to, oh hell, this shit's happening again. So then we go inside with Jaime and Cersei having a conversation about it, and she actually talks out loud about the Maggie the Frog prophecy that we saw in the beginning of season 5, the flashback where she went to the Woods Witch witch, and she told her, you're going to have 3 kids, you're going to lose 3 kids, gold will be their shrouds. But then Jaime's like, fuck prophecy, fuck everyone that's not us. We're going to take everything back and more. We're going to take it all. But this is what makes Cersei such an interesting character. She has these moments of being really human and really emotional, and she really loves her children. You know, she's talking about Myrcella here about how she was so pure and good, not like her. You have these little moments with her where you kind of start to feel for her for just a second, but then she turns around and does something stupid again, then you want her to be dead again. And then we go to the cells and we see Marjorie, and she's still in prison, and Laura says as well, she's asking the Septon to see her brother and ask him if he's okay. She keeps saying confess, 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 and then the High Sparrow comes in and says, yeah, she can be a little abrasive. I didn't come here about Loras, but you need to confess. And she's like, I don't have anything to confess. And he's like, what, you're pure? You're perfect? And she's like, none of us are. So once she says that line, the High Sparrow says, you have started down the path, but you have many, many miles to go. So this is kind of her little moment where she's going to start realizing, you know what, if I play alone with this guy, I can get the hell out of here. And then we go over to Dorne, and this was the big shocker of the episode. Basically, they just destroyed the whole fucking Dornish storyline. So we have Dorne walking up along with Illyria Sand. He is able to walk around. He just has the gout like in the book, so it's very painful. But he's talking about Oberyn and how he was meant to travel and do all these things that he's done, whereas Dorne has stayed in Dorne the entire time and was meant to rule. And they seem to be getting along pretty damn good. And Arya Hotah is standing there guarding him with his big long axe spear thingy. He gets a little note from a messenger, and he finds out about Myrcella dying. And Illyria looks over at Tyene like, oh shit, he's about to find out, but they had a plan anyway. Tyene pulls out a dagger and jabs Arya Hotah in the back, and he goes down like a sack of potatoes. Now, this is a man in the books, at least, who's been built up to be one of the baddest warriors in the entire 7 Kingdoms, or the world for that matter. It had to be poison. I mean, that's the way they're going to explain it anyway, I suppose. And then Illyria pulls out a dagger on her wrist and stabs Dorne in the heart. And he goes down trying to choke her, but he goes down anyway, obviously. And then his last words were, Trystane, my son. And she looks down as he's dying and says, he's weak, and Dorne will never be ruled by a weak man again. And then we flash over to King's Landing on the boat where Trystane is there, and he is actually sad about Myrcella's death. Jaime didn't like immediately blame or kill him, obviously. He was in the harbor, and he was actually painting the rocks that's going to go on Myrcella's eyes. And somehow 2 of the Sand Snakes made the way from Dorne onto the boat in King's Landing to kill Trystane. So yes, they killed Trystane, and within 2 minutes of the whole damn show, the entire Dornish storyline is basically just wiped out. So right now, at least in the show, Illyria and the Sand Snakes are kind of the de facto leaders of Dorne. The guards just stood around and watched, so they all kind of agreed with him, I suppose. So I know this pissed a lot of you off. It pissed me off. Why they decided to go this route, I have no idea. But I will say that just based off the line that she said to Dorne as he was dying, where she said no weak man will ever rule Dorne again, I can only guess that it kind of goes along the lines of what Val and I were saying in our predictions videos, that this will somehow tie into Dany's storyline, because Dany is going to be the female conqueror coming over at some point. So this does seem to be pointing, at least to me, in the direction that Varys will come over and strike some kind of deal where there will be some kind of Targaryen Dornish alliance, because they do have the same enemy, and the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And then we come across good old Tyrion and Varys, and they're walking the streets of Meereen. And at this point, Meereen is basically desolate and abandoned. There's nothing going on there. Everybody's kind of fled out of fear, apparently. The Harpies have obviously been raining terror around everywhere. Now, there was an interesting line with Varys as he talks about the attack in the pits was an organized thing, so it had to be somebody taking orders from one person. So that does point to a single leader of the Harpies. And Tyrion says, yeah, have you found out who that is yet? And Varys tells him, my little birds have flown, and soon they'll come back singing songs of men in gold masks. So that does point that there may very well be a single leader of the Harpies, and he may not be in the city right now. And then they come across a red priest, and he is actually preaching for Dany in the sense that she is the Dragon Queen, she is the savior, but he's basically telling people to riot up against her enemies while she's gone. And Tyrion and them can't really have all this going on, this warfare within the city while she's gone. And Tyrion basically says, yeah, this whole red god religion thing is going to be trouble. So this is going to lead Tyrion and Varys to have the conversation with Kinvara, where they will essentially tell her, hey, we need you to preach about Dany and all the good things about her, but you got to tell all these R'hllor followers to stop rioting in the streets. We need peace here, damn it. And of course, they come across a little sign there where it said kill the masters before, and somebody has painted Misa as a master. This tells you what we already knew, that Dany is no longer really loved by all the common people in Meereen. And then they see a group of commoners running away from something, and they run over to where they were running from and realize that Dany's entire fleet of ships are burning in the damn bay. So somebody has taken upon themselves, like the Harpies, to burn all of Dany's ships, and Tyrion says, well, she won't be sailing to Westeros anytime soon. And then we come to Captain Friendzone and Dario as they're on their little trek to find Dany, and they're riding their horses and talking. He actually calls Jorah a romantic and says, you know, when I look at you, I think this is the way I'll be when I get old. And then Jorah says, if you grow old. And I thought that was a pretty interesting line there. So then they come across the area where the Khalasar was, where all the horse tracks were, where the horde surrounded Dany in season 5. And Jorah, of course, gets off the horse and goes over to the center of that little ring of horse tracks and finds Dany's breadcrumb, the ring that she dropped. So now they know where she's going to be. They may not know where she is at this very moment, but Jorah knows all the rules and customs of the Dothraki, so he knows by default thought that since she was a former Khaleesi of Khal Drogo, that she has to be taken to Vaes Dothrak to become part of the Dash Khaleen. So they now know where to go. And then we come to the mother of dragons herself, and she's walking along with this huge Khalasar and has these two blood riders talking shit to her the entire time beside her about her white hair and her pale skin. They don't really know who she is at this point. And that was kind of a funny conversation, I have to admit. You know, is her hair white everywhere? And apparently all men of all races, creeds, colors, and religions crack mama and grandmama jokes no matter what world they're in. And then we see them come across what looks to be a stopping point, just a resting point, some kind of little tent city. And these two same assholes come up and grab her and take her to Khal Moro. So she does meet Khal Moro here. And she does go through, like I said in our predictions video, you know, the whole thing about this is who I am. I'm Daenerys Stormborn, the Unburnt, mother of dragons, queen of this, queen of that. And he's like, yeah, you're queen of nothing, millionth of your name. But then when she tells him I'm the former wife of Khal Drogo, he automatically gains a lot of respect for her instantly and says, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. No one will touch you. You have my word. And he actually cuts her hand restraints off. So she's like, oh, well, cool. And she asked him, will you please escort me back to Marine? I'll make sure that your Khalasar receives 1,000 fresh horses as a token of my gratitude. And he says, well, the problem is you're a former Khaleesi and there's only one place for you, and that is Vaes Dothrak as part of the Dash Khaleen. It is known. And then we go over to Braavos and we see blind Arya, and she's sitting here as a beggar. This is kind of like a character in the book she was, Blind Beth or the Cat of the Canals, and she's sitting there simply begging for money. But then we have the wave come up asking her, do you hear them, blind girl? Are they listening to you? Are they talking to you? And she throws her a stick and basically whips her ass with a stick while she's blind. Arya even says, I can't fight, I'm blind. And she says, that's not my problem, that's your problem. So since it's telling us that this is still part of her training, she is still being punished in the show for taking the face and killing Meryn Trant, but this tells you she still is in some type of training as well. So she's getting another chance, obviously. In the book, she learns to warg a cat to see while she is blind. Obviously, the point here is for her to learn to use her other senses, because the wave basically says after she whips her ass, I'll see you tomorrow. And then finally we go back to the wall. We have Alistair Thorne coming up to meet Davos at the door, and they talk through the door and try to arrange this peace agreement for him to go south as a free man. He'll pardon any Night's Watch brothers in the room for putting down their arms so they can get to Jon Snow's body and probably burn it. And basically what's going on here is he's trying to buy some time while Ed is still out trying to get the wildlings rounded up. And then they're really confused about what to do. You know, what if Ed doesn't come back, or what if the wildlings don't show up? And Davos suggests, well, there's always the Red Woman. And one of the guys in the room says, what can the Red Woman do against 40 armed men? And Davos kind of defending her in a way, which is a first. And Davos basically says, you haven't seen the things I've seen her do. So he's kind of defending her here. This is going to start their little alliance. But after he says this line, it goes to Melisandre in her room. But as Val and I said in our predictions videos, they have introduced glamoring. She's obviously very depressed. She's losing her religion here, and she literally gets up, looks into this mirror, and starts taking off her clothes. But then she actually takes off the choker, which seems to be the ruby that powers this glamour, to kind of hide her true identity. And I gotta say, I called this a long time ago in a video. I think it was a Q&A video, and also in some comments that I thought she was 100 and something years old at least. But this woman is more like 300 damn years old. She's old as hell. Hey, but she's still getting around. So basically this represents her literally taking off her faith. She lost her religion, and she climbed into bed and put the covers over her as an old woman. She had never had to do this before. She had never got cold before. Val and I just talked about this in our predictions videos, where she loses her faith, she loses her heat, and therefore she's going to get cold and need to actually wear heavy clothes again, because she's always worn that small little skimpy ass dress. But something's going to trigger her faith once again. And just the fact that Davos said that line, there's always the Red Woman, that she will have a role to some effect in bringing Jon back, or at least she will get her faith back by seeing Jon come back. Whether or not Jon's resurrection has something to do with her faith being reignited, or her faith being reignited has something to do with Jon's resurrection, remains to be seen. Alright guys, so that's basically the episode. Overall for me it was okay. It was kind of what I expected. It was more of a setup episode, so there wasn't a lot of big action scenes obviously, except for the Dornish stuff. That really surprised me that they just killed off Doran Martell and Trystane that quickly. I kind of expected Trystane to die, but in a different way and by different people. But I didn't expect Doran to be taken out like that, and Areo Hotah, who's supposed to be one of the baddest men in Westeros and all the world for that matter. We had a lot of things going on in a lot of places, so they kind of touched on the Jon situation, they touched on the Cersei and the King's Landing situation, the Marine situation, the Arya situation over in Braavos. So it was what I expected as far as the first episode of the season, although it didn't come out with a big bang like they kind of said it would. So overall for me it was pretty good, but it was kind of lackluster at the same time. So anyway guys, let me know what you think. I will be doing reviews every single week for every single episode. In the meantime, you can click here and here for the last two prediction videos that Val and I did for McCullough's Geek, and those are on Jon and Dany. Obviously, they just touched on their storylines here in the first episode, so there's plenty of episodes left to see if those predictions hold true. So check those out, let us know what you think. And as usual, thanks for all the support, guys. Be sure to give this video a like if you dig what I do here. Be sure to subscribe to get everything. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.